In the early 1900s, researchers wanted to find out how cities worked. They developed a variety of urban land use models to help describe and explain different types of cities and the neighborhoods that made up the city. It makes sense that scholars at the University of Chicago developed many of these land use models because Chicago was a city that saw rapid growth in the 18th century. Some of those models, like Burgess's concentric zone model and Hoyt's sector model, asserted that all of the models used to explain urban land use have at their center the Central Business District, CBD. The CBD is found at the heart of every older city and is the area of skyscrapers, business headquarters, and banks. Spreading out from this intensive economic land use area is a fringe of wholesale and retail businesses. Warehouses, transportation terminals, and light industry. The residential area extends outward beyond this ring of activity. Several of these models try to depict the use of this urban area spatially. A few years after Burgess and Hoyt published their findings, Chicagoan geographers Chauncy Harris and Edward Ullman came up with their own idea of urban land use, the multiple nuclei model. In 1945, Harris and Ullman developed the multiple nuclei model. They asserted that the Central Business District, CBD, was no longer the only center of an urban area or city. In earlier models, the CBD was at the core of the urban land use model and was found at the heart of every older city. The CBD is the commercial and business center of the city, and in bigger cities, the CDB is often referred to as the financial district. They were the first to consider the complexity of the city and its surrounding areas. Harris and Ullman claimed that, in newer cities, automobile-based intra-urban dispersal was creating a multiple nuclei structure of urban land use. This mobility allows for regional centers to specialize the businesses. In the multiple nuclei, the nuclei are the multiple smaller growth centers that developed around the metropolitan area. These nuclei can be ports, universities, airports, parks, neighborhoods business, and governmental centers. Their goal was to produce a more realistic model, even at the expense of being more complicated. Their aim in this model was to move away from the concentric zones and better show the complex nature of large urban areas. The model, to no one's surprise, describes the layout of a city based on Chicago. The multiple nuclei model illustrates that even though an urban center may have been founded with a CBD, other smaller CBDs evolve on the outskirts of the city near the more high-class housing areas. This allows shorter commutes from the suburbs. This phenomenon creates nodes or nuclei in other parts of the city other than the CBD, thus the name multiple nuclei model. As multiple nuclei evolve, transportation hubs are built which allow industries to be established with reduced shipping costs. These transportation hubs have negative byproducts, such as noise pollution and lower land values, making land around the hub cheaper. You will find hotels near airports because people who travel want to stay near the source of travel. Housing develops in sections and gets more expensive the farther it is from the CBD. There are 10 nodes of the multiple nuclei model. The CBD, numbered 1 in the picture, still exists as the primary nucleus, but multiple small business districts have developed, distributed around the metropolitan area. Some of these newer areas compete with the CBD for traditional businesses like banks, real estate, and insurance companies. These separate nuclei become specialized and differentiated, reducing the pull of the CBD. Another node is the wholesale, light manufacturing area, numbered 2 in the picture. These businesses are more consumer-oriented and near residential areas. Manufacturing goods that need small amounts of raw materials and space develop in this area. Businesses that offer wholesale goods like clothes, furniture, and consumer electronics are found in this node. Another node is the residential districts. Residential neighborhoods of varying status also emerged in nearly random fashion as well, creating pockets of housing for both the rich and poor, alongside large zones of lower middle-class housing. There is a sort of randomness to multiple nuclei cities, making the landscape less legible for those not familiar with the city. Unlike concentric ring cities that are easy to read by outsiders who have been to other similar cities. One of the residential zones is the lower or working class residential zone, numbered 3 in the picture. People who live here tend to be factory workers and live in low-income housing. Housing is cheap due to its proximity to industry, where pollution, traffic, railroads, and environmental hazards make living conditions poor. Those who live in this sector do so to reduce the cost to commute to work. They are sometimes stereotyped as living on the other side of the tracks and may experience discrimination. Another node is the middle-class area, numbered 4 in the picture. This residential area is a bit more desirable because it is located further from industry and pollution. People who work in the CBD have access to good transportation lines, making their commute easier. The middle-class sector is the largest residential area. Hoyt's model also identified an elite zone for the handful of upper-class people who live in the city, or the high-class zone, which is numbered 5 in the picture. Michigan Avenue was that elite district in Chicago. High-class residential sectors tend to be quiet, clean, and have less traffic than the other ones. There is also a corridor that extends from the CBD to the edge of the city, where you find prime real estate. In many cities, you will find the high-class district on the west side, where prevailing winds enter the city and are upwind from industrial zones, which are dirty and smelly. High-class residential housing is unlikely to be located near factories or lower-class housing areas. In this way, Hoyt's model suggests a distinct physical separation between the wealthy and the poor. Another node is the residential suburb, which is number 8 in the picture. These suburbs are usually single-family homes on a small plot of land on the outskirts of the city. They tend to be laid out on roads with cul-de-sacs instead of following the traditional grid pattern. Another node is the outlying business district, which is number 7 in the picture. This district competes with the CBD for residents who lived in nearby middle and high-class neighborhoods offering similar services and products as the CBD. Businesses found in this node are malls, airports, colleges, and community businesses. Another node is the heavy manufacturing area, which is number 6 in the picture. This node is occupied by factories that produce material that is heavy like chemicals, steel, industrial machinery. This node also houses the mining and oil refining industries. Another node is the industrial suburb, which is number 9 in the picture. This neighborhood is a community created and zoned for industrial sources on the outskirts of the city. Industrial districts in these new cities, unfettered by the need to access rail or water corridors, rely instead on truck freight to receive supplies and to ship products, allowing them to occur anywhere zoning laws permitted. Because industrial zones create pollution, they are located away from residential areas. Finally, the commuter zone is the outermost ring of the city, characterized by suburban residential areas and a high volume of commuters traveling to other nodes within the city, particularly the Central Business District, CBD. This zone is typically associated with more affluent populations and well-developed transportation infrastructure. One of the limitations of the model is its failure to explain the development of slums and informal settlements. Slums, squatter colonies, and informal settlements have become an inalienable part of most major cities in the world. These are especially a prominent part of the urban landscape in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The multiple nuclei model fails to explain why slums emerge or their location within the spatial division of the urban landscape, as defined by this model. Urban land use models were developed to explain different types of cities and the neighborhoods that made up the city and how each area functioned. But the contemporary metropolis has spilled out of its central city confines in the second half of the 20th century. And these models are no longer capable of accommodating a new urban reality in which the suburbs are the essence of the American city. The multiple nuclei model still provides a good interpretation of the land use organization of today, using multiple nodes to illustrate how urban land is used. The CBD is no longer at the center of the action, but multiple business districts develop to support the outlying areas of the city. Knowing how to classify types of areas using classic models is an important part of the study of cities. Thank you very much for listening.